Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast. And as I was kind of thinking about the recent trip that we took, I was trying to figure out how to kind of encapsulate all the information and all of our experiences for you to kind of hopefully help you when you guys decide to do your next European trip, or kind of show you what went right, what went wrong. And there was just really too much to do in one show. So what I've decided to do, and I want to introduce, welcome back to the show, my beautiful wife, Anna Wake. How are you doing?
Good. Oh.
Yeah, so Anna Wake and I are going to talk about our time in Rome and Germany afterwards. So we did the Mediterranean 7-day Civitavecchia to Barcelona. We ended up going to Rome and spending 3 full days in Rome ahead of time before we left on the cruise. And then once we got to Barcelona, we flew to Germany and spent 2 days there before we came back to Portland. And so to break kind of all that information up and not do just one huge, super humongous long show, Anna Wake and I are going to talk about our time beforehand in Rome and then Germany afterwards. And then John and I are going to jump on and talk about our experiences. They did a similar trip out to the Med. They did the 7-day round trip out of Barcelona, so we'll talk about the cruise with him. And then I've got a couple shows lined up with our oldest son and maybe our youngest. We'll see. He's a little squirrely. But to talk about the kids' clubs, because they had a blast there. And I really want to bring Andrew on to talk about the Edge, because he had just another great experience there. And I think that's a club that really doesn't get talked enough about. So with that being said, I thought we'd start off in how we got to Rome. And we ended up flying on British Airways from Seattle to London and London on to Rome. And the way we got there was by using miles. And it's a topic I'd love to do in a future show, but just kind of to throw it out there, as far as miles go, we use a credit card, and we both Anna Wake and I use a credit card. We use the Alaska card, and we're not endorsing any card. All we're saying is if you want to help lighten the bill a little bit of going to Europe,
some kind of mileage credit card is a good thing. We choose the Alaska card because that happens to be our employer, and so it works good for us.
Right, and also they, like Delta, offer a companion fare, which I'm not going to go into all of the ins and out of that, but that kind of helps us save money when we have to buy tickets to other places. So we use the Alaska card. Delta is very similar. There's a lot of people that use Delta. One that I'm looking into is the Chase Sapphire card. And if there's anybody out there that has some experience on that using Chase, I'd love the feedback on that, because there's a million different strategies. There's the points guy online you can go to, and kind of he gives some great strategies on how to do it. But one of the ways, I mean, this in all honesty is one of the ways that helps us do these trips is by putting everything that we spend onto the credit card so that we can use miles to get us there.
Right. Because if you don't have to pay for airfare, it makes the trip considerably more cost-effective.
More cost-effective, yeah. It's definitely more doable. You can go on more trips that way. Okay, so this time we, like I said, we flew British Airways. One of the things being on the West Coast we prefer is we like to, no offense to anybody on the East Coast, we do not like to go to the East Coast. We like to go nonstop off the West Coast all the way to Europe. So that's kind of what we look for. So that's why we chose British this time. It's just easier sleep-wise for us. And just a couple strategies, I guess. Normally in the past, we have gone through the East Coast, and that usually gets us into Europe early in the morning. So why don't you talk about what we like to do for that, Anna Wake?
So if we get in early in the morning, we like to go to the hotel, sleep for a little bit, set an alarm, and get up, even though it's painful, take showers, and go wander around, get some daylight, get some dinner, and then come back to the hotel and end up going to bed at sort of the normal time, which gets us onto Europe time as quickly as possible. When we did the Norway cruise and we flew to Europe with our kids, we ended up in London at about noon, and which sort of compressed that. We took a quick nap and headed out, and still ended up in bed at a relatively decent time. This trip was the first time that we actually got to our final destination in the evening. We arrived in Rome about 5:15 p.m., and we went and we checked into the hotel, and we just took showers and headed out, knowing that we would all be tired and maybe a little bit cranky, and we all did a little group like patience with the family, and headed out to dinner and came back and did end up in bed at about a usual time, so that we got on track for the next day.
Yeah, and that seems to work. So those are kind of two strategies that we use to kind of get onto a good to get on European time as fast as you can. I know a lot of people are kind of nervous about the time zone changes,
Especially with kids.
And so those are kind of two strategies that we use that have really helped us in the past. So, okay, so let's talk about Rome. I had never been to Rome before. Annemike had been.
I'm 26 years ago.
So she was the expert. Yeah, she was the expert 26 years ago. So one of the ways, our biggest resource in planning, you can go online. There's a lot of blogs out there that you can go into. But I think our favorite when it comes to Europe is Rick Steves.
Definitely.
Yeah, so we use the Rick Steves Italy book. He also has 2 cruise books, one through Northern Europe, which we used when we went to Copenhagen, and the Baltic cruise, and also he has one in the Mediterranean. So we used his book for that as well. So he just has a great perspective on the bigger cities, giving you value. I mean, he gives you kind of across the board from cheaper, from all the way from the youth hostels all the way to higher end hotels. But you can kind of find a hotel. You can pick a hotel in your budget.
And he definitely gives options that are locally run. So if you're headed to Europe and you want to actually have a European experience, not an American experience in Europe, you want to actually go stay in a European hotel, he gives lots of good quality options to make that happen.
Definitely. And so it's not going to be Holiday Inn. It's not going to be Hilton. Yeah, it's not going to be the
Four
Hilton.
Seasons.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, this one, our room was just one big, huge room. It had a bathroom that had been turned in. We figured out.
It appeared that the hotel was old enough that it probably predated bathrooms in the room. Like it probably at some point when the room was built or the hotel was built, there was a hotel bathroom down the hall that people went to, and I think as more and more non-Europeans travel, the Europeans have succumbed to the pressure and put bathrooms in the hotel rooms. And so it was definitely like a one big room, queen size bed, 2 twin beds, and then a built-in to the corner bathroom.
Yeah, they basically took the closet.
Right.
And put the bathroom in the closet. But you know what? They're all clean. All the rooms
People are
we stayed
friendly.
in. Yeah.
We got breakfast, which was great.
Yeah. So we're huge Rick Steves fans. Check him out. You can get his books. You don't have to buy his books. You can find them in the library. Pretty much every library has them. But if not, you can always buy them online, Amazon. You can go to his own website, ricksteves.com or whatnot. And the other good thing about it, if you're nervous about going to Europe, it's your first time, and you're nervous about the language barrier, every one of these hotels is endorsed by him, and they all speak English.
Speak English.
Yeah, they will be able to speak English to you. So don't be nervous about that. So that's a good resource. Also, with the bigger cities that he kind of talks about, like Rome, he gives you strategies for seeing all the different sites. So without having to pay a tour guide to walk through. And each one of them, so like the Parthenon, the Basilica in Rome, he gives write-ups in his book, so you can just actually bring the book with you and read it. Or now he's got an app, so you can download the app.
Yeah, it does like a walking audio tour.
Yeah, download the app, and then you can listen to it on your smartphone. So you don't even have to carry the big, huge book that's as big as a dictionary. For those of you who remember what dictionaries are. Right. So those are kind of how we plan our strategy for Rome, is using his book. So I
guess the other good thing about Rick Steves is that he'll list the major highlights in any city, and he codes them, like the must-sees, the things to see if you have a little bit more time, kind of, I guess, categorizes them. Must-sees, things to see if you have a little bit more time, and things to see if you have a lot of time.
Yeah, and he'll do things like, if you're going to be there for 3 days, this is how to do it in 3 days, how to do it in 2 days. And if you're only going to have 1 day, then these are the things you should see. You don't have to see those. You can go and do whatever you want, obviously. But it kind of gives you an idea, or it's a great planning tool to kind of think about, yeah, that'd be good, or maybe I want to add this and take this out. So, well, thinking about Rome, so we fly into Rome, and Rome itself is probably, I can't remember now, 20 or 30 minutes away from the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we got there, and you buy a train ticket on, I think it's called the Leonardo line.
I think it was the
Leonardo line that takes you right into Rome.
Leonardo Express.
So super easy. Get off, buy your ticket there, and jump on the train. And there's several different neighborhoods you can stay on. The Pantheon, there's the Northern Rome where where the Spanish Steps are and the Jewish Quarter is. There's the Vatican City area, and then there's East Rome. And the main train station where the Leonardo line comes into and all the trains come into Rome is called Termini. And I hope I'm saying that right.
You are.
Okay, Termini. And so, not having been to Rome, not sure how tired we're going to be once we get there. We got kids and everything else. And
pulling suitcases over cobblestones.
Pulling suitcases over cobblestones. We just picked a hotel in the Termini station. And Termini, if you read what Rick Steves says, it's a little bit more, it's more like working Rome. Yeah, so it wasn't...
It was a little rough around the edges, but it was
totally safe.
Perfectly safe.
Yeah,
yes.
Totally safe. So a little bit rough, it's not like if you're staying next to the Spanish Steps, as we went there and I was kind of looking around, they got some great quaint little streets, and at night it would have been just pretty, if it's just you and your significant other, it might have been kind of romantic wandering around and like that. Well, Termini is not quite that, but there's lots of good restaurants, and it's super convenient to get to anywhere from Termini.
It's convenient to get anywhere, also convenient to do the hop-on, hop-off bus.
Yeah, the hop-on, hop-off bus stopped and started there. We've become kind of fans of those. If you have a couple days, it kind of gives you a highlight to see where everything is. You ride it around once, see where everything is, and then...
Get an overview.
Yeah, get an overview, and then you can decide what you want to do there. So that worked out really good in Rome, too. Also, there's a subway that you could jump on from there. The public transportation really isn't the easiest to get to everything.
Nothing is as far as you think it is, and there were multiple times that we took public transportation and then thought, oh wow, this went around the long way, and if we had just walked straight, it wouldn't have taken us any longer to just walk. So
right, so if you,
it's definitely a walkable city in the core of the tourist core, I guess.
Yeah, we could walk to everything. I mean, I think the only thing that was a little bit further away from Termini was the Vatican City.
Right.
Yeah, that was probably, and you could have walked there. You could have walked to that.
Like,
too.
let's say, so the two of us and probably our 12-year-old could have walked there. The 8-year-old would have given us some grief. So we took public transportation.
Oh. No, he's getting better.
He's getting better.
Yeah, so we did the hop-on, hop-off.
In the morning, he would have been fine.
Yeah. So that's why we stayed where we stayed, and a little bit about the hotel. We already talked about that. Great little hotel. Breakfast in Europe, if you've never been to Europe, is a little bit different. Most of the hotels, and I guess a lot of the times when you book your hotel, you can prepay for breakfast, and I love it. So we always do. Yeah. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you can expect at breakfast?
It seems that typical breakfast is a roll, ham, some kind of cold cuts, cheese, fruit, usually muesli in Germany. I don't think was there cereal in the Rome one?
Yeah, they had cereal. They usually have hard-boiled eggs.
Oh, hard-boiled eggs.
So there's no scrambled eggs or omelets made to order or anything like that.
But the kids were super excited to pick a hard-boiled egg out of the whole basket. Oh, and we'll get to that, but
yeah. So yeah, a little bit different. And when Anamik says roll, it's like a bread roll, not
a cinnamon roll.
Not a cinnamon roll. They do have some sweet stuff, like sweetbreads too.
There were some pastries in Rome.
I think that you guys had a chocolate croissant.
Pretty much every day.
Yeah, every day. So there you go. So there is some stuff like that. But breakfast is a little bit different. I love it, personally.
Me too.
I think it stays with you a little bit better than like cereal.
Pancakes,
so yeah. So definitely, I guess I would say that works best for us to always
definitely
add the breakfast on in the morning and stuff like that, rather than having to just go and find something. And it kind of starts your day off good. So the way we attacked Rome, luckily by the time we were there, mid-June, end of June, it was getting warm. It was in the 80s, maybe 90s one of the 2 days.
I think the first day was probably closer to 90.
Yeah.
Maybe even above.
Yeah, but it gets a lot hotter once it gets into July and August.
I will say, the one memory that I definitely have of my 26 years ago in Rome was being there in August, and I don't think I'll ever go back in August again. The Romans are on vacation because it's about 1,000 degrees in their city.
Right. So we had 3 days there. We kind of broke it down. We wanted to see the main highlights, which was, and Rick calls it what did he call it again? The Heart of Rome Walk. So that one, we missed the Capitoline Hill.
Oh, we did.
Yeah, it starts at Capitoline Hill. It goes by the Parthenon, the Trevi Fountain, and then eventually ends up at the Spanish Steps. And it's all a walkable tour. Once again, he kind of gives you history behind each one of the things that you're seeing. He gives restaurant recommendations in each one of the areas along the way. And so that's what we did the first day. And what we kind of found out was almost like a Disneyland or Walt Disney World experience that we've kind of come to do, where we get up early in the morning, get some breakfast, and go and see stuff. And then we would come back for like an hour or two to just kind of chill out.
Cool off.
Especially with the kids, cool off a little bit. And then maybe, take a shower and then head out and get something for dinner for the evening and just kind of wander around in the evening a little bit.
Right.
A lot of gelato.
A lot of gelato.
A lot of gelato. Yeah. So anyway, so that's what we did the first day. We did that. Any thoughts on the Trevi Fountain, the Parthenon?
Everything is crowded, expect it to be, but people are polite, and I think and everyone is there for the same reason. So people maneuver their ways around and get their pictures and throw their coins in to make sure they get to return visit to Rome.
Yeah,
and,
tell everybody what you have to do.
Well, we didn't really realize all that you had to do, so I hope it worked, because the kids and I tossed our coins in, and then we heard somebody else talking about how you have to. Maybe it was even a tour guide talking about how you're supposed to stand with your back to the fountain and use your right hand and throw the coin over your left shoulder. And we thought, oh, well, darn it, we didn't exactly do that. But I'm pretty sure I didn't do that when I visited Rome before. Maybe that's why it took 26 years to get back. If I had done it the right way, maybe it would have been sooner. But I have a feeling we'll all be back, regardless of how we threw the coin in.
So that was kind of our first day. We went on the recommendation of the hotel and also Rick Steves, and I think we had probably one of the two best meals of the whole trip at a restaurant called Don Giovanni.
Right.
Yeah, and it was just a little place downstairs.
Like a little farmhouse-looking restaurant.
Yeah.
Family-owned.
Yeah, I mean, it's like in an office-looking building, but you walk in and they've decorated it with wood paneling, white wood paneling, and it just looked like a little farmhouse. And man, everything was good.
It was great.
Especially what was your dish?
Well, the first night I had the special, which was meatballs and peas, which sounds maybe a little bit strange, but it was really good. And our older son had pasta with cheese and pepper, and I can't remember exactly, cacio de pepe or something like that. And it was awesome. And I had a taste of it the first night, and I made them all go back for another round of Don Giovanni so that I could have pasta with cheese and pepper. Because it was really good.
Yeah, so Don Giovanni, 2 thumbs up on there if you're headed towards Rome and anywhere near Termini. So that was our first day. The second day, we booked a tour. And another site that we've started to use, and this comes from a recommendation of 2 people that we fly with, 2 coworkers who go to Europe quite a bit and cruise quite a bit, is Viator. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right.
I think it is, yeah.
Viator.
T-O-U-R.
No, I think it's T-O-R.
Oh.
Yeah, Viator, Viator.com. They've got an app. You can go on it. You can search all the different cities. They've got tours everywhere. You can break them down from historical, adults only, family friendly, and we booked a family friendly. And the one thing that the kids really wanted to see was the Colosseum, and so we booked a family friendly tour.
And we highly recommend booking a tour prior to your arrival in Europe. Book the tour from home before you go.
Yeah, so we did that. We booked a family-friendly tour of the Colosseum. I think it had a 4 o'clock start, so we got up, just kind of hung around for the day, kind of wandered around. We did some shopping.
We did a little shopping.
Yeah, did some shopping. And then we went and met our tour guide about 4 o'clock at the Colosseum, and there was, I think it was probably about 30 people, I think, all families with kids.
Right, that's about right.
Yeah, and the guides are incredible. Just read the reviews on them. And that's the thing. Some of the tours have reviews, and some of them have tons of reviews, and some don't have any. So just like going to Amazon and buying something, if you trust those reviews or whatever else, do your homework and read some of those reviews. Make sure that they're recent. They're not from like 2012. Maybe you can look for the ones that like something recent. Like this tour, the guides all had really high recommendations, and he was really engaging to the kids. He was talking to the adults, but he was really engaging with the kids. And in several times along the way, he would stop and they would do an activity.
Right.
Yeah. So
he had to play some kind of game or some kind of quiz or.
Yeah.
All sorts of good stuff.
Pretend like they were gladiators and fighting. So yeah, it was a great way to see. For the kids to see, for the adults to see and experience something. So yeah, definitely recommend Viator. And the amazing thing about it that really kind of helped us, which is just part of the magic sometimes that helps out with your trips, is as soon as we walked up, there was another family that had an older daughter and then 2 boys that were basically our kids' age.
12 and 7.
Yeah, 12 and 7. And so we start talking to them, and it turns out, where were they headed tomorrow?
Rome, I don't even know how to say it, but Disney cruise.
Civitavecchia. So they're heading on the cruise with us. It was their first cruise. They were a great family. We just kind of clicked with them right off. The kids clicked. And as we'll talk about in the next show, and maybe when Andrew gets on, he and the older kid, Ben, really hit it off as well. And they just had a great time through they connected once they got on the cruise to the edge, and that helped them find a group of kids, and pretty soon they had a whole posse of
That they were running around and doing their own thing.
doing their own thing.
Letting their parents be on vacation.
Yeah, there's the app on board, the chat app that you can use through Disney, and so they all connected on there. They had a group chat, so we'd go and do tours during the day, and then we'd come back, everybody'd have dinner, and they'd all find each other through the chat app. Hey, we're going to meet up here, we're going to meet there, we're going to go see this movie. They went and saw The Incredibles 2 several times. So just, that was kind of the luck of the draw that we met them on that tour. But so just, I don't know where I'm going with it.
Be open to meeting people and talking to people and finding out why they're there and what they're doing, and you never know where
it's going to take
you.
Yeah, so that was a great experience and a great tour. So that was the Coliseum, and then after several days of pizza and pasta, our kids were rebelling. Well, I mean, they loved it, but maybe we were all kind of rebelling. We needed to do something different. So we walked back as we were walking back for the Coliseum to the hotel. We passed
Subway
sandwiches. Yeah, exactly. And one of our kids' favorites. So we stopped in there and had dinner at Subway that night.
Right.
And actually, it was awesome.
It was just what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, it was easy. It was quick, and we were on our way to gelato.
Right.
So, and then the last day we were there, we all wanted to go to the Vatican. Do your research on this. Know your family. We decided not to go and see
to skip the Vatican Museum and the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah, which I know.
And to just go to the Basilica, which probably sounds awful to the big art lovers, but, and this may sound a little bit crazy too, but our boys' school has a really well-established art literacy program, and the boys had seen wonderful pictures of Michelangelo's work, and based on that and my experience of the Vatican Museum and seeing the Sistine Chapel, 25 years prior, I remembered that you don't really get a whole lot of time in the chapel, and it's kind of hard to see. And maybe they actually got a better view in art lit than they would have gotten if we had waited in line and seen it in real life. And they'll go back again.
Yeah, it gives them something to go back and see. Then talking to some people afterwards on the cruise ship that had gone there, they said it was just wall-to-wall people. It's a very narrow, it's very long museum, stuff that we didn't think was going to keep the kids' attention, all to funnel you towards the big finale, which is the Sistine Chapel. And so we decided this time to skip it. If it's something that we do in the future, we do it. If it's something they want to do in the future, we'll let them do it. The one thing I would probably say is if you're going to do it, plan on, especially once you get into the heart of summer, if you don't book a tour, you're going to spend a lot of time in line.
Right.
Yeah, getting into there. So
book
probably
some sort of skip the line tour.
Yeah, some kind of skip the line tour. You can do, once again, you do that through Viator. You can do it a lot of different sites. So I'd kind of really highly recommend that if you want to go to the Vatican Museum. We decided just to go to see the Basilica itself. It was amazing to see how big that cathedral is. I think it's the biggest in the world.
It is.
Yeah.
It was interesting to hear our boys' perspective too, because to them, they were going to go see a church. And to them, church is like the ones that they've been in near home. And it was so completely not that they were both kind of blown away that this was even still a working church and that this was the original church.
Right. So we decided to do that. We didn't book a tour through it. We got in line. It probably took about 30 to 45 minutes to work through the line. The big hang up is getting through security. Everything has to go through a metal detector. And once you get through that, it's pretty quick into the basilica itself. Mm-hmm. And you can, once you get in there, there's a couple different opportunities. You can go all the way up to the top. For an additional price. It's free to get into just the basilica. But if you want to go up to the top of the dome, there's like an additional price for that. I think there was something else that you could do once you got in there, but I'm totally drawing a blank now.
Well, we went down into the catacombs.
Yeah, but that was free. Yeah, so we went through once again, we just used Rick's book. We kind of read a couple different spots. The kids are interested in it for the most part, but once again, you got to know your audience. We weren't going to spend hours in there reading about all the different history of the church and whatnot. But it was cool for them to see it. And so we did that. We finished through the catacombs. You go down. It's below the church where all of the popes are buried. So that was kind of neat to see that.
Right, and see the differences through the ages.
Yeah. So, and then that kind of finished up Rome for us. We ended up going back, did a little bit more shopping, and hit Don Giovanni's for that last night.
Cheese and pepper.
Yeah, for your cheese and pepper pasta. And that was Rome. Any overall thoughts about Rome? Any advice you would give people?
I would say to remember that Rome is a very big city, and similar to New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, some sort of big, large metropolitan city, and expect that. Don't expect small, quaint countryside Rome, because it is a big city. It's the capital. So
yeah.
It's crowded and people everywhere, but it's definitely worth a see, and just be patient and considerate and all those good things.
Yeah. And one other thing that they kind of recommend is using a travel wallet.
Oh, yeah.
Just for pickpockets. There's a lot of pickpockets in
the tourist places.
In the tourist places, and really that's everywhere. I mean, even when we were in St. Petersburg, Russia, there was like a couple of spots where
they said the same thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, in my opinion, most of that is just situational awareness. Be aware of who's around you. Be aware of why people are coming up to talk to you, and just, you don't need to be paranoid, but you do need to be cautious and aware.
Yeah. And one of their tricks that they like to do is they like to come up and hand you something. And they can really take advantage of kids too. So maybe if you got kids with you, talk to them. Don't take anything, because as soon as you've got something in your hand, then they've got your attention. And so that's when they can either, somebody else that's working with them can strike, or they're going to engage you. And sometimes it's just
right. I guess I will say that definitely both of our boys have phones that they carry mostly for picture taking, and I did, in this places where it was quite crowded, I did take both of the phones from them and put them in my bag, because I was concerned about their ability to read the crowd and didn't want them to be pickpocketed because they were easy targets.
Yeah. And you don't have to be mean, but I think the thing that's just the easiest thing to do is don't engage with them. Just keep walking. And I mean, I hate to say ignore them, but just ignore it.
Yeah, that is kind
and they'll move on to they'll find somebody that's going to grab that's going to grab whatever they're trying to hawk to you. Right. And they'll bother them, and you just keep moving on and see what you want to see. Go enjoy the Spanish Steps and everything
the
else.
real reason you're there.
Yeah. So that was Rome. Great city. A lot of fun. I think that worked out well for us to be busier in the morning, on into the afternoon, come back and hang out for a little bit. We had the time to do that since we had 3 full days there. Right. Obviously, if you're only there for a day, you're going to have to pack it in probably to see all those different things. So from there, we went on the cruise, and different Disney's options to get to the cruise ship was when we were in London, they either left from the airport or there was a hotel downtown in London where they would take you to the cruise ship. And I couldn't find that in Rome. All I saw was you needed to make your way back to the airport. So we elected to book a private car that picked us up at our hotel and took us straight to the port. And that was cheaper.
And it was very nice.
It was very nice. And it was a lot easier than having to haul our bags and get back on the Leonardo Express back to the airport and then get on the Disney shuttle. So the one thing, I think I've noticed this on both of the cruises that we've done in Europe now, or all 3 of the cruises that we've done in Europe. No, I guess 4. Is I think that because Europe is such a destination, the cities that they live out of, unlike Port Canaveral, where everybody's going there just to cruise for the most part, there are a lot of people that are going to spend that as much as they can in Rome that day to see it before they make it to the ship. So I feel like as far as the embarkation process, once you get there, is pretty easy. The crowds are pretty light.
Yeah, it was definitely easy.
Yeah. So quick getting on the ship, and we were on our way. And then John and I'll touch on the ship and kind of our experiences there. So let's fast forward to Barcelona. Boo, we're getting off the ship.
I know, yeah, that's the bad part.
But Barcelona, once again, we didn't book through Disney to get to the airport. Our plane left at 11:55 to Munich, and so we got up. We had the early dinners, so we had the early breakfast. And we, instead of going to Cabanas, we went down. We really liked our server team. We went down and had breakfast in Rapunzel's table. Rapunzel's Royal Table.
That is where it was, yeah.
Yeah, and that was really nice. It was, we got up, we enjoyed breakfast. We didn't put our bags out. We only had one bag each, and then everybody had a backpack, and then we all had our roller bags. So we just packed up, left them in our room. So we went down, ate, went back up to the room, brushed our teeth, made the kids brush their teeth.
Right. Their mother is a little obsessive.
Yeah, the never-ending battle of brushing teeth. Got our bags and just walked off the ship and got in line for a taxi. And like a lot of places, there's a fixed cost to get to the taxi from the
airport.
Yeah, to the airport. I think it was 35 euros.
I don't remember.
But much cheaper than what Disney was offering. And not to pick on Disney or anything like that. Whatever works best for you.
I will say the one thing that if we had more flight options, the one thing that would have been a pretty cool idea, what Disney does offer like a end of cruise excursion where they'll give you a city tour and then take you to the airport, and that would have been a cool thing to do next time.
Yeah, and actually I think that was actually cheaper to do that, to book that tour and move your bags than to book just the transportation to the airport.
Oh, could be.
Now that I think about it, but don't quote me on that, but that's a good option too if you want to see the city. But our flight was leaving earlier than that allowed. So we jumped on, got a taxi, got to the airport in plenty of time. Barcelona's airport is busy, big, busy airport.
Right,
and,
definitely.
Yeah.
And especially, it was a Saturday also. And there had been some sort of track and field, Europa championships or something like that. So there were lots of groups traveling together coming through the airport.
So it was a little chaotic trying to find the ticket counter, but once we found that and got in the security line, it was pretty fast.
It was quick.
Yeah. So there we are. We took Lufthansa this time to Munich, which was nice.
It was very nice.
Yeah, nice little trip there. So we got to Munich and we rented a car. And I'm going to throw out another advice thing as well as far as renting cars. If you are part of the rewards program for whichever car you decide to rent, and do not be afraid to drive in Germany. Germany is super easy. Italy, I think, is easy. France is easy to drive. Once you get into the cities, it's a little bit tougher.
That's different.
But our plan was to fly to Munich, and then we were driving into the Southern Alps, probably about an hour and a half drive, to a ski town called Garmisch-Partenkirchen, and that's super easy to do. Especially since most of the cars now have navigation devices.
The most difficult part of the trip was figuring out how to turn the car's navigation from German to English. And at one point, Steve speaks some German, and we were both frustrated with the nav system, and I thought, well, can't you just take the directions in German? Which probably would have been okay, but it would have been more difficult than figuring out how to turn it to English, which we eventually did do.
Yeah, so you can toggle it over to English. We had a Volkswagen Tiguan. And that was perfect for all the bags and for us. But back to the car rental process itself. We've rented a car twice in Munich, and it can be slow.
It can be slow, depending on who's in line in front of you.
Yeah, depending on who's in line in front of you. So if you are a member of, we have Avis Preferred or Silver, I forget what it's called. Preferred. And that puts you in a different line, which basically we went out to where the cars were, and there's a little hut out there. You go get your keys and you're gone. And I wish I would have known that, because sometimes my Preferred works and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, if you that will help you get to your car faster and avoid what can be kind of a lengthy process.
Line waiting.
Yeah. So anyways, so there we get the car and we make our way to Garmisch-Partenkirchen. We picked this for a couple different reasons. I've always wanted to go up there. It is up in the Southern Alps. It is absolutely beautiful up there. It's a ski town, so lots of people go up there for skiing, lots of outdoor recreation in the summer. And then our big plan was to spend one night there, and then we had a full next day was to go visit Neuschwanstein and see the castle, and then come back and do some hiking. So we booked a hotel. I'm not even sure how I found this. I think I found it through TripAdvisor. That's another website I like to use as far as trying to find things, especially in smaller towns. There's only so many. This is a place where Rick Steves probably, actually, I think he does actually have Garmisch-Partenkirchen in Germany. But, if you're going to a smaller town like this, TripAdvisor seems to be a pretty good website that I like as well. Yeah. And the other thing I like to do personally is once you find that hotel personally, and this is just what I like to do, is to book that hotel directly through the hotel's website.
Then they have you.
Yeah. So That way you're not dealing with the second or third parties, so that when you show up, they're going to have your reservation. And I guess we've never had a problem with that. But I have heard stories, when you're going through, you bought it through Expedia or TripAdvisor or something else, if they don't have the reservation, well, there's nothing they can do. They're like...
it didn't get transferred to them. Correctly.
Yeah, so they're like, go call TripAdvisor, and it's just like, is somebody going to be there to answer or whatever else? So that's just personally what we do. But we booked a small little Gasthof, and it was beautiful. It's quaint. I didn't know what to expect, I guess.
No, I mean, you never really know what it's going to be until you get there.
Yeah, so Garmisch is actually the bigger, kind of busier city part of it, and Partenkirchen is, how did she say?
It's the historical town.
Yeah.
It's the historical.
So we stayed on this just beautiful little street with shops and everything like that. I'll try and put a picture of it in it, but it was an old farmhouse is what it was, and it's been turned into a hotel. So, typical kind of German hotel like that. You walk in, there's the eating area right downstairs. Restaurant downstairs. And then you go into a back area and upstairs, a lot of the rooms where people used to live, they've turned into rooms that they rent out. And this room was kind of similar. This one, we had two rooms.
There's separate rooms, yeah.
Yeah, we had separate rooms. But...
Well, we had, one hotel room, but there were two rooms within the hotel room.
Right. But once again, an older kind of, but clean.
Totally, definitely.
Yeah, but definitely an older building, wooden floors. So, you're not going to have your carpeting like the Hilton and stuff like that. I feel like I'm picking on the poor Hilton, and I like the Hilton. So.
Yeah, the Hilton's good.
Yeah, but a much more authentic experience, I think.
Definitely.
And what was really cool was as we checked in, she was like, if you'd like to join us for dinner, let us know. We need a reservation. So we're like, okay, yeah, we'll join you for dinner. And she's like, we will have music and dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we came down, and there was this quintessential older gentleman who was playing the accordion, and he was playing Oompa music up there as we're eating, and it was awesome.
It was. And when she'd said the music starts at 7, and at 8 the boys come to dance.
Yeah.
And we didn't really know what that meant, and then the boys came to dance, and they were there was two boys, probably maybe 14, 15.
I don't think they were even that old. I think they were younger. I think they were more like 12.
I think they looked older than Andrew.
They were close. I don't know.
Anyway, so somewhere between 12 and 15.
Yeah.
And they did traditional German dancing to the music that the man was playing on his accordion. It was really cool.
Yeah, and the food was really good too.
Food was very good.
Yeah, so that's what we did the first night, and then we just kind of wandered around the town. They had a church further on down, and the bells tolled every hour, and it was really nice. It was beautiful. We got lucky. It was clear, blue skies, all 3 days, and it clouded up and rained the next 3. So we got totally lucky there. So the next day we went to Neuschwanstein. I
highly, highly, highly recommend making a reservation before you leave home. We were one of the very first tours of the day, I think 9, 10 o'clock, something like that. And when we came down from where the castle is, there was a sign in front of the visitor center that said that the next English, it was probably at that point maybe 11:30 in the morning, and it said that the next English-speaking tour wasn't until 6 o'clock that night. So
yeah, so definitely book your tickets online ahead of time. They're mostly German-speaking tours, so you can always take that to get into the castle. But if you want to take that English-speaking tour, then you definitely want to book ahead of time online, and that way you've got it set. The one thing about Neuschwanstein too is it sits up on top of a hill, and they do have some horse carriages that will take you about halfway up, but you're going to have to walk, well, probably about 2/3 of the way up, but you're going to have to walk the other third to get up there. So if there's mobility, if you have any mobility problems, I'm not sure what the options are.
I don't know.
To get up there, but you definitely have to hike up there. But it's doable, and it's beautiful.
It is.
Yeah. And so once you get up there, you take the tour, they walk you through the castle. Just as an FYI, it's beautiful on the outside. On the inside, it was never finished. Right.
There are multiple floors that are just the walls. Nothing. Yeah. There's a beautiful throne room that there was never a throne in.
Because he died.
He died. He only lived there 180 days.
Yeah. So, but the rooms that were finished were
beautiful.
We're seeing. It's about a 30-minute tour, and then like everything else, they run you through a gift shop, so you can get your...
so you can get your Neuschwanstein book.
Yeah, you get your Neuschwanstein book, your Neuschwanstein magnet, your Neuschwanstein spoon, yes, or whatever it is that you need from Neuschwanstein. And then
stuffed swans for the kids.
Yeah, the one thing that we didn't do last time, this is the second time we've been there, was go out to a bridge. that is a little bit of a hike. You get around to it, and that's where you get that quintessential shot that everybody's seen of Neuschwanstein Castle.
Right.
And
pretty view.
Yeah, there's a pretty big line, but they do a good job because they have somebody that controls who goes, the crowds as they go onto and off of the bridge. And so that line moved pretty quickly.
It did.
Yeah, so if you get out there and you see that big line, don't
panic.
Yeah, don't panic. It moves pretty quickly. And
we met some nice people in line, talked about their trip. And actually, so another tip for the bridge, if you do wait in the line and you go out onto the bridge, the crowd is at the very beginning of the bridge. And if you work your way through the crowd, it's much less crowded farther onto the bridge. And that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
You get better views.
Yeah, so beautiful, beautiful shots from there. That's where you get that quintessential shot. And being up there, you get just on a clear day like that, we just got the whole view
of the whole valley.
Yeah, the whole valley, great. And it is just beautiful. So from there, we went back, got in our car, drove back to Partenkirchen, and then we ended up it's called the...
Well, we headed that direction because there's the ski jump from the Olympics.
Well, no. We did the hike first.
Oh,
yeah,
okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we took a cable car up to the very top of the Wankbahn up to the top of Wank Mountain.
Right.
And it has a beautiful, probably 3-mile hike that goes around the top of it, and you just get this panoramic view of the Alps throughout. And on a clear day, and I think we did see it finally eventually, the Zugspitze is there, which is the big, huge peak that you can take a cable car up to as well. But it was kind of cloudy in the morning, and we were going to run out of time, so we didn't do it. We'll have to go back and do the Zugspitze, which is part of the reason why I wanted to go to Partenkirchen. But this was an amazing hike because you were looking down at gliders. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, at one point there was like 3 or 4 gliders that were all kind of flying around, and they were below you. And then they all kind of must have been going back to where they were going to land because they all started following each other down through the valley.
Right. Yep.
It was amazing, and I'll put a picture or two up, but
then pictures don't do it justice.
Yeah, pictures definitely don't do it justice. So while we were up there, we saw a ski jump because that's where they had the Olympics.
1936.
I think so.
Maybe 32.
Yeah. Anyways, they had the Olympics there, but that ski jump wasn't from then.
No.
So
it was training.
They do. The German ski team does their ski jump training there. So the kids wanted to see it, so we went over there and
when we got there, we found that there was actually like a whole kid adventure park.
Yeah, there are all kinds of different things that you could do. And they had one of the alpine slides. And there is a bigger, better one probably that we saw advertisements for. But this was kind of a smaller one. The kids had never done it before. So
they were both a little bit nervous and decided that they each only wanted one ride, but that they wanted us to go with them.
Yeah.
And then talked to some other kids who had just come off and decided, well, maybe they wanted some more rides. Maybe they could go it alone.
Yeah.
So we decided that I would ride with our younger son just to make sure that he knew how to operate the car.
Yeah.
And so we did one ride that way, and it was super fun. And then the kids did a couple more, and
yeah, so kind of a fun way to end the day. And then we headed back and found, because we didn't have enough pizza.
Right.
When in Germany, what do? You go to a pizza place, right?
And actually, it was we had all just gotten, you try to at least when you go to places where they don't speak English to at least, know the basics. Please, thank you, in whatever language you're in. And so we had all just kind of retrained ourselves to say danke instead of grazie. And then we go to the Italian restaurant in Germany, and they are all speaking Italian, and we didn't know what to say.
I know, we were totally confused. The kids are saying danke, the waiter's saying grazie, prego, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, but just a fun little town.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'd love to go back. And there's so much stuff to do there. There's bike trails everywhere.
Right, we did kind of wish we had more time to spend, and we could have done a bike tour, rented some bikes.
Yeah, if you're a biker at all, just being in the outdoors, it's beautiful. Think Sound of Music.
Right,
kind of scenery.
Yeah,
Sound of Music type scenery. So that was our time in Germany. So we got up the next day, drove back. I think we had a 2:00 flight. We went on Icelandair this time from Munich to Keflavik, and Keflavik back to Portland. So that was pretty easy. Got there in plenty of time, dropped the car off, which was super easy. And then found our plane and headed back. But just a great trip, and a good way to end it, because it's so hard to get off that cruise ship, I think, and head straight home. And sometimes you have to. But having another 2 days, and most people from the trip, I think, stayed in Barcelona. We decided to go to Germany this time because
it was cheaper
to
fly home from there.
Yeah, but also...
And also because Steve doesn't think that you can go to Europe without going to Germany.
You can't. You cannot go to Europe without going to Germany. All roads lead through Germany at some point.
Right. So. You have to make at least one stop.
Yeah.
I guess also about the trip home, a quick little shout out to Traveling with Children on Icelandair. So I don't know what the age cutoff is, but our boys are 8 and 12, and both of the flights, the flight from Munich to Keflavik and then Keflavik home, our younger son, they brought him a little kids meal box, and one of the flights he got like a little pack with like an activity book and crayons and some headphones. And then the next flight, they actually brought him like a cool little string backpack and like a sleeping mask, which he was super excited about, and another set of headphones. And it was pretty cool, and it was just neat that they did something special for the kids.
Definitely. Yeah, I can't recommend Icelandair enough. We love them. So yeah, it's, we're not the first class travelers. We're in the back.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah, we're in the back with the chickens.
Right.
Yeah, the pigs and everything else. But no, but just I think they do a really good job. Comfortable overall, easy.
And I mean, this maybe sounds like a crazy recommendation point, but each time we have flown on Icelandair, I found that the adjustment, because of the flight times, the time zone adjustment has been easier. And it's because the flights are when you would have normally been awake anyway. And then you get to where you're going and it's evening and you really were up for a long period, so you are ready for bed. But it just seems to work better with the natural sleep cycle somehow.
Yeah, so if you're West Coast,
yeah,
it definitely works better that way. So can't recommend Icelandair enough. So we've really enjoyed it.
Definitely.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on Onawake. Yeah,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, always. If anybody has any questions about any of this stuff, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook, DCL Podcast, or you can always reach me on Twitter as well, on DCL Podcast. And that'll be the first part of of our little trip report, and then watch for John and I. We'll get ours out. We'll talk about the cruise itself, and then bring Andrew on. We'll have a little bit of fun with the kids clubs.
I think you should talk to Alex too.
We'll get Alex on too, the wild man. So, all right. Well, thanks again for joining us. Appreciate you always coming back and taking a listen. And if you're heading out on your next trip between now and then, all of us here at the DCL Podcast, I'd like to wish you fair winds and safe travels as you head out on your next adventure. So thanks again for coming back and taking a listen, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.